And I'll start with a story about me. This is me with my parents, Frank and Jane. I'm 6 in that picture. And I grew up in New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore, Asbury Park area. You might have heard of it. And I loved going to the beach. I loved swimming. But as I grew up, I noticed the water was getting dirtier. And I wound up with what they called beach tar on me coming out of the water. That, I found out later, was spillage from the refineries just a little further up in New Jersey. I also, as we were kids, we'd go up to visit my grandparents in northern Jersey, and we'd drive in the car, and we'd go up before the parkway. It was Highway 35. We went up Highway 35. I was the oldest daughter of 7 kids. That says something about where I learned my leadership things, I think. But we were in the car going up to visit our relatives, and on the way up, we would go over the Raritan River, and as we approached that, we'd roll up the windows, because you couldn't button buttons, you had to roll them up, and pinch our noses, because the air was truly foul. It was awful, and it really disturbed me. And I'd look over the Raritan River, and it was dirty. There were oil slicks. There were barrels. It was a mess. We just, get out of here fast, Dad. Just drive. And it really did trouble me, environmental pollution as a kid. So not a surprise, I wound up being an environmental science major in college. And in college, I watched a wonderful thing happen. I watched the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act be signed into law by some visionary, forward-thinking legislators, Democrat and Republican, said we need cleaner air, cleaner water. And this was a very good thing because we had rivers on fire. It was a very bad situation. And I have to tell you today, the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act worked. Things are so much better. We had acid rain had caused dead lakes in the Adirondacks. Up at Mount Desert Island in Maine, I saw them. They were kind of beautiful. They were clear, but there was nothing living in them. No more dead lakes. We have taken care of that problem. The air is much better. And we did it because we had clean air and water minimum standards for clean air and water. And it drove innovation. And that innovation actually achieved over-compliance, right, in reducing the NOx, the SOx, the particulates in power plants at a lower cost than anybody thought. So we proved that public policy can make a difference and and leave things better. Something my parents taught me was, as a kid, I think this was a survival tactic of having 7 kids, is leave things better than you found them. I also learned that in the Girl Scouts. I was actually a Girl Scout. And leave things better than we found them. So today, we have the challenge, the environmental challenge of our time. It's actually even bigger, I believe, than the pollution we had in the 60s and 70s. And this is carbon pollution. I've been watching it grow since I was in college. I learned about it then, and it is a serious problem. We now have climate change. It's happening. It's real, and it threatens our very survival. I wish it weren't true, but it is true. Today, we know about the devastating rainfall that we have, the torrential rain. We know about record floods. We have huge heat waves that make life uncomfortable and cause medical and death problems for people. So the heat waves, the flooding, the torrential rains, we saw Superstorm Sandy flood New York, flood New Jersey. We saw Tropical Storm Irene wash away parts of Vermont, all within 24 hours. So these are really happening, and they're happening more frequently. The future predictions of carbon pollution affecting climate change is that sea level in the Northeast will rise 1 to 2 feet by the end of the century if we do not change what we're doing today with emissions. 1 to 2 feet. What does that look like? Well, it looks like New York after Superstorm Sandy. Boston will be underwater. Philadelphia will be underwater. So this is not leaving things better than we found them. This is not a legacy we can leave to the next generation. So we must do something about it. The good news is I believe that we can do something about it. Yesterday was a historic day. We've already heard about it twice already. The Environmental Protection Agency issued Clean Air Act Section 111D to regulate carbon pollution from existing power plants. This is a very big step. What does it do? You actually have a pamphlet. I think there's something in your folder about 111D. What does it mean? In summary, what it will do is to regulate carbon pollution from existing power plants to require a 30% reduction by 2030. And that will be a big help towards what we need to achieve in climate stabilization. What does it mean for the Northeast? It means actually that we pretty much already comply. We have the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative that's been operating since 2007. Was signed into a compact among the states. And since then, we have achieved more than 23% reduction in carbon pollution from existing power plants. We have saved over $2 billion in consumer energy bills, consumers and businesses. We have created over 2,500 clean energy jobs, and the savings keep going. So we're on the right trajectory. The 111D requirements will probably require about a 1.5% increase in energy efficiency in states across the country. We're already doing 2% or more in 3 states here. So this region has already shown the way for the rest of the country of how to comply with the 111D requirements. And we're doing it with energy efficiency. But unfortunately, that's not nearly enough. I wish it were, but it's not. Climate stabilization requires an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, carbon pollution, by 2050. 80% reduction. That's a big challenge. It means we have to stop using fossil fuels in the way that we've been using them. And we need to make a big change in making existing homes and buildings more efficient, button them up, make them efficient. We have to make our cars and trucks more efficient, electric vehicles. We need to integrate new clean energy supplies into our system. And we need a whole range of tools that will make that possible, including, as you'll see as one of our themes today, a new business model for energy efficiency for utilities generally. We need new regulation. Currently, in my opinion, regulation of energy efficiency treats efficiency as if it were one of the riskiest investments we make. But in fact, it's not. It's one of the least risky, most dispersed. And if we're going to save the planet, if we're going to stabilize our climate, we need to treat energy efficiency as a very valuable resource. We need to innovate. We need to open it up. We need to do things very differently. So how are we going to do that? Well, I don't actually know the answers to all these questions, but in this room, we have many hundreds of years of experience of energy efficiency. Many hundreds of years. That's just because you're not getting older. It's because we're big, and we have been doing it for a long time. So the wisdom in this room is part of the knowledge we need of the way forward. But another important thing is you're here because you care about this. It matters to you. I'm clearly passionate about energy efficiency because I'm telling you why, but I know the rest of you also care very much about this. So we have expertise and knowledge, we have commitment and passion. And there's one more thing that we need that I think that will bring the solutions to the table, and that's working together. That's the collaboration. That's NEEP's commitment to you, Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships, is to bring you together to talk about how we're going to make it happen. And indeed, I talked about the NEEP staff and the NEEP board, but really, you're all NEEP because we don't create the solutions, we do that together. So that's the challenge. We need to show not only this region, but the rest of the world, the rest of this country, that we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. So that's our challenge. So one other thing I'm going to bring to you to sort of bring us back to the summit today. How do you come into this conversation? In changing up the summit, not only are we doing talks like this, talking about ourselves, talking about what we care about and the way forward, but we're going to invite you into the conversation. So we talked about the tweeting. Have we already gotten some tweets going up on the board here, Alicia? It's already good. And these solutions will be tracked across the day. So tell us what you think we need to do. Another thing is we have speakers, 8 wonderful speakers, very inspiring speakers who are going to talk to you about what to do, and you're going to have a chance to ask them questions and talk with them and share your comments. So I hope that you will step up today and have those conversations. And finally, we have a polling process that we're doing this year. If you look in the middle of your table, you'll find a little button. You see it? Okay, hold them up. All right. So we're going to have about 12 polling questions across the day, but there's one button per table. So this means you all need to agree on how to answer the questions that come up during the day. Collaboration, expertise, passion. I want the button. So you're all going to be participating, and I invite you now to be able to prepare yourselves for this by, one, turning to each other, and if you don't already know each other, I think they know everybody here at this table just about, but also say something about from where were you from? Where do you live now? And then a rule about how you're going to use the button to respond. So I'm going to turn this back to you now to greet the people, your names, where you're from, how are you going to respond to the poll? And then I'm going to introduce our opening keynote speaker. So thank you for being here.